Well, for anybody listening, this is episode, I don't even know at this point, maybe 15 of the GoGuide podcast. We are here with Greg McCrimmon from Native Waters Fly Fishing out in Colorado. Greg has been one of the early partners that we've had with GoGuide, somebody who has been incredible to work with, really awesome to be able to bounce ideas off of, and somebody who was really willing to just kind of give us a shot, which has been incredible. I'm super excited to learn from you and get a little bit more info about your fisheries, the things that you are passionate about, and looking
Absolutely.
forward to this chat.
Yeah, likewise, man. And just to reiterate too, right back at you, just really honored and thankful to be working with you guys. You guys have been great, super helpful. Nothing but 5 stars from my perspective. So thank you for just allowing me to be a little bit of the testing side of things, which has been fun. I mean, it's been good to see you guys succeed as well. And I love it so far. So.
Yeah. Well, I'll start it off kind of like I start everyone off, is I'd love to hear kind of your story within the fly fishing industry. I know this is kind of the long one here, but I'd love to hear how you got into it and how that's matriculated into you actually owning your own guide service.
Sure. Yeah. It's gonna take us way back. My grandfather is the person responsible for kind of sparking that love for the outdoors, fishing and hunting actually. I mean, I still have my first fishing pole. I know it's a rod in the fly fishing world, but it was a little Zebco Snoopy, 3.5 foot push button, spool kind of thing. And I have pictures of it. I think I've posted some pictures of it over the years, fishing a river in Michigan. I grew up in northern Michigan. That's home in my heart for me. Surrounded by just God's country, beautiful rivers and lakes everywhere. I grew up fishing bass and pike and all the warm water fisheries. And I really, honestly, didn't really develop, I guess you could say, a passion for the cold water fisheries, trout, salmon, and that sort of thing, probably until I was an adult. And it wasn't because the passion or the desire wasn't there. It was more of just a lack of understanding. I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't know anyone who knew anything about it. And so I didn't really have the resources at my fingertips, mostly ignorance, to know what to do or who to reach out to or how to find that, even though it was right there. I mean, there's tons of blue ribbon trout streams within an hour of where I grew up in Michigan. And I had no idea. I think there's something to be said about taking for granted what's right at your fingertips because you think all the good stuff is way out there, right? And I've learned to appreciate Michigan far more after leaving Michigan, believe it or not. So, fly fishing came along in my life as a young adult. It was shortly right before we moved to Colorado. So my wife and I got married in 2006. We moved to Colorado the following spring of 2007. And I had bought 2 fly rods probably a year before we moved out here. It was like this sale that was going on, and I was like, I don't know anything about this, but I know I'm going to get into it someday. And this is before I knew we were coming to Colorado. So I'm just going to buy it while it's on sale and hope someone crosses my path that can show me what the heck to do. And so shortly after moving out here, we were attending a church out here, and the assistant pastor at the church was an avid fly fisherman. And so we just became fast friends. He's kind of a father figure to me. He actually guides some trips for me now. And he was the one responsible for showing me about fly fishing, really sparking a new passion in the outdoors for me. And so we have been fishing together. His name's Jim Kilpatrick. We've been fishing together since that time, all over North America. I mean, and we're both very, very passionate about native trout. And so we've spent quite a few days over the last 15 plus years just exploring creeks and watersheds in the Rocky Mountains and beyond. And so guiding came along, early on probably in my fly fishing journey, just because when I become passionate about something, like I want to share it with other people. And there's something about this journey as you progress in it. It's like when you first start fly fishing, you want to just catch a fish, right? it's ugly, it doesn't look good, you're not worried about casting tight loops or roll casting 80 feet or anything like that. You just want to catch a fish. And so you catch a fish, and then you get used to that, and then it's, well, now I want to catch a lot of fish, and consistently. And then it's like, well, I want to catch a big fish now. And then it's, I want to catch a lot of big fish. And so you see this progression, and at some point you arrive in a place where you're just content and happy to be out there. If you catch a fish, great. I mean, that's always the goal, right? We go out there because we want to use our skills and we want to use our talents to outsmart a fish. And so you challenge yourself in new ways. But at the end of the day, no matter if it's a new place, a new fish, whatever it may be, at the end of the day, the memories that stand out the most to me are being there with special people and sharing it with somebody and just being present. And so guiding was kind of a natural progression of just my personality, I think, of just wanting other people to experience something that you cherish. And eventually, hopefully, they cherish as well, so if they're a beginner. And so it just seemed natural to me. Like, I was always asking friends, let's go fishing, let's go, let's go hike up into the wilderness somewhere and look for trout, and we'll pack some food and whatever, and just go make a day or a weekend of it. And so I was like, man, I should look into guiding. And so I started guiding rivers, quite a while ago, and then it became really more, I guess, professional in the sense of looking at it more as a career and something I really wanted to pursue, probably in the last 5 years. And then having my own outfitting company, I think, was just the natural progression, right? It was, I wanted to work for myself, and I wanted to bring other people in who were just as passionate in their own way to share with other people. And so my personality in life is, if it's something that I'm willing to put time and energy and passion to, then I want to include other people in it. So I want to provide a platform or a space for other people to come in and be able to utilize their passions and skills and gifts and talents that God has given them to share with other people. So an outfitting business was just natural.
I love that. Yeah, from the moment I met you, I could tell that you're one of these people that is kind of a bring people to the table type of attitude.
Yeah.
Not at all exclusive, not at all trying to kind of keep what's good to themselves, but excited about the idea of bringing people to what's good and being the person that's kind of like influencing in that way, which I think is super valuable. One of the things that I see in great guides that I've been able to work with. So that's awesome. I saw this one piece and interesting thing that I saw between what you were talking about in Michigan and the way that you see the progression of fly fishing as well.
Yeah.
And the piece of like kind of taking for granted what's right in front of you, right? Mm-hmm. Like even in fly fishing, we're always looking for the next fish, and we want to get the next hook set, we want to get this, we want to get that. But like when we get really good at fishing is when we look around and we're just tying a fly. And for me, like in the Indian Peaks Wilderness, I'm just looking around, and I stop tying my fly and I'm just looking around, and I'm like, like this is the beautiful part.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that. That's huge.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's cool.
So yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more of like where that attitude kind of blossomed for you as far as the bringing people to the table. Like, is that something that you've always been, like, is that something that's instilled from you, from family, from the church? Like, what part of your life has brought that to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a combination of all of that. I think God, gifts people with different abilities and talents, and we have an opportunity to use them, or not. And, for me, I just love people. I do. I enjoy being around people, with people. Now, don't get me wrong. I enjoy my solitude too. There's something recharging about, like you said, going off into the wilderness, Indian Peaks, or wherever it may be, and just being alone, so to speak, out in the wilderness and looking around and seeing nothing man-made. Like there's something powerful and just awe-inspiring about that. You feel small, and at the same time, it's just powerful. And so, but at the end of the day, like I crave social environments, right? I like, whether it's on the river, in a coffee shop, at our dinner table, I love hosting. I love just being around people and learning about people, different cultures. I've had the opportunity. I feel so blessed to have been around a lot of the world. Traveled to different continents and countries and experienced a lot of different cultures and peoples and different ways of doing things, and even fishing in a lot of these places, and learning different methods of fishing and different purposes for it. America, the Western world, I guess you could say, is unique in the fishing world in the sense that it's kind of one of the only cultures that, at least modern day, we don't treat fishing as a food source as much, right? And we do in the oceans and some of that, but most fly fishermen, I would say, most anglers who are out there, the vast majority of them, at least from my perspective and opinion, is that catch and release is what we do. It's a sport, right? It's something that we're passionate about and we sink a lot of money into as we do our passions. But there's countries around the world and there's cultures that they don't get that. They have no idea what that is, because to them, fishing is food. It's not a pastime or an enjoyment or something we do on our day off. It's like we have to fish to eat. And so learning and growing and understanding of that and being open to that in a way that's non-judgmental is beautiful, I think. And understanding that, hey, we have a really rare and kind of beautiful opportunity that we get to catch and release. We get to sustain our fisheries that way. We don't have to, most people, I would say, we don't have to keep our catch because we're not hungry. And so that's unique. But yeah, I would say, just, the church, growing up in the church and everything, being around family and just gatherings and stuff. I've always naturally had a gift for networking and meeting new people and getting to know people, asking questions, and just having a genuine curiosity about other people in their life and who they are and what they think, and I think it's fun. I think it's unique. I think it's great that I can have a client fly in from the East Coast and they've never been to Colorado, and I get to show them a piece of what I do, and I get to show them just a small glimpse of what Colorado is like. And at the same time, I want to know where they come from and what life is like on the East Coast or whatever it may be. And so, yeah, I think the more I've grown in my relationship with God, I think involving other people is just what God would do. So I want to replicate that.
Absolutely. So that genuine curiosity, I think, is so important as to how you can be such a successful guide on the water. I would love to hear a little bit about like how you feel like that's been able to allow you to have such success with, probably, I assume that once you have somebody that fishes with you, you're probably coming back. I mean, I know I would. Have you seen that that's kind of a trend with many of the clients that you have or people that you see every single year?
Yeah, I hope so. Like, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I sometimes don't even like using the word client because it sounds too professional, business-like to me. I'm so much more a social, like once I get to know, like Phil, like you, for example, I consider you a friend, even though I don't know you that well. Like, you're someone that I've gotten to know enough with the few interactions we've had that you're a great dude and you're my kind of people. You're somebody I want to hang out with. So if you're in Colorado, like, I want to go fishing with you or go grab coffee or whatever it may be. So, I say client loosely in the sense of, yes, there is a business relationship there, as we all need in life. But at the end of the day, here's my hope. My hope is that there's been enough of a good interaction in that 6 or 8 hours or whatever it may be on the water, and enough conversation and just laughing or having a good time, high-fiving over a fish or learning something new about water, learning something new about somebody else, to gain an understanding of somebody, enough to the point that when we say our goodbyes, you're not saying goodbye to just a client. You're saying goodbye to someone you hope to see again. Even if it's not in a client role, a client guide role, even if it's just, hey, you're in town, let's go grab coffee. And I would say I've been fortunate in the sense that a good majority of the clients that I've had over the years have very much turned into friends, and even close friends, a lot of them. And in fact, I just made a post about that earlier, and I'm thankful for that, because at the end of the day, like, I wouldn't trade those friendships to have more clients, right? I would rather have more friends. I would rather have more people that know me beyond the guide, and that I know them beyond client.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, what's more important than the client-guide relationship and
Yeah.
honestly, friend-to-friend relationship that you get on the water?
Yeah.
The fact that you spend eight hours on the water with somebody, you get to talking to the point where you know a good, decent bit
Yeah.
about them,
Sure.
and you're a part of this cool experience that they got to have. So I feel like that's more than important as far as continuing that relationship for sure.
Yeah.
I really liked the piece that you were talking about with the way that you see how the Western world fishes
Yeah.
versus some of these other experiences that you've had, because it is pretty crazy that
Yeah.
people are able to make a living off of the recreation of something that people in other countries, that's a main food source. That's a way that they sustain themselves.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear. Do you have any stories of places you visited and got to experience like the fishing in those areas?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Some places I wish I had my fly rod with, but we were there for different purposes. So, the one that comes to mind for me, in 2018, I had an opportunity to go to Uganda, in Africa. And, headwaters of the Nile River, the longest river in the world, right? I mean, famous, right? Bucket list fish, Nile perch, that type of thing. Tiger fish in Tanzania and closer countries and stuff like that. So, I mean, obviously going over there, it wasn't a fishing focused trip. It was a ministry focused trip, and which was awesome as well. But we had a chance to like take a float trip like on the Nile River, like up towards the headwaters, and it was this picture perfect. You couldn't have asked for like a better scene. Like, it was raining, and old '80s songs are coming to mind, and it's raining on the Nile River in Africa, and I'm sitting here in this. It's like, what? It was like in that moment where you're just like, your mind is just taking snapshots every 3 seconds everywhere you look, because I want to feel this as fully as I possibly can in every way. I want to hear it, see it, smell it, touch it, all these things. And because I know this is going to end soon. And wow, and what an experience to be on the Nile River. And so, but during that trip, we got to interact with and just work with a lot of very, very extreme, poverty-stricken places and people in these areas. And our main contact over there. He owned a farm and he had some acreage and everything. And his whole mission in life, ministry, is to really just help Ugandans start their own farm so they can be self-sustaining. And so he's grown this farm up, and he brings in people from all over who stay on the farm, and they learn agriculture. They learn how to farm and then take that back to their village, and they buy a quarter acre of land and they start planting, start reaping harvests and stuff. And so it's a really beautiful thing to see with the resources that they have. And I mean, the farm is absolutely gorgeous, and they have these ponds, right? And so in the ponds were fish, and they were specifically grown. I mean, it was tilapia and catfish, and they would just grow these fish on these farms. It wasn't for catching, it wasn't for fun. I mean, catching to eat, obviously, but there was no sport, I guess you could say, involved in any of it. Whereas, we go release fish and stock fish. It's to grow a population of fish for people to go out and enjoy and keep that sustaining. There's no bag limits in Africa, right, that I know of. If there is, it's new to me. But it was so cool because, they netted when it was dinner time. And there was hundreds of people there, and we got to be their guests. And they drug these nets through these ponds, these muddy ponds, right, and dredged them with these nets. to pull out all these fish. And then we had this like massive, like, it wasn't a fry, but I mean, they cooked these fish over these little ovens that they had built, like over an open fire. And so that was cool. Like, that was so unique, and an experience I'll never forget. And it was delicious. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool.
Definitely a lot of perspective there.
Yeah.
Pretty cool experience for sure. Definitely something that I'm sure many people should get out there and do and experience for themselves, because it's important to get that perspective and understand how lucky we are.
Absolutely. Well said.
I'd love to hear about you. We've touched a little bit, I think, here and there on kind of conservation and kind of a little bit of your views on conservation. I'd love to hear about how conservation plays a role in not only the way that you fish, but the way that you actually teach clients how to fish that come out and fish with you.
Sure. Yeah, it's a wildly popular conversation, I think, today. We all know, well, I think most people know the history of conservation in America, and we've seen, it swung both ways, right? I mean, we can look back at history and see where conservation wasn't a focus, and the plains and the Rocky Mountain valleys and stuff used to be covered in bison, and there's not too many wild populations of them left. And certainly, I'm reading a book right now called Cutthroat Campfire Tales, and it's a lot of the history of the Western kind of way of fishing and the pioneers who came before us and everything, and some stories that I had never heard of before from way, way back of early settlers and stuff, and just encountering native trout out here, the cutthroat, and then there's pictures and stories of, even here in Colorado, of a couple guys going out and just cleaning house on these rivers, right? Like keeping every greenback cutthroat and filling wagons and bringing them to the fish market to sell. And so, it's not an infinite resource, right? The fish aren't, and I believe that God has called us to be good stewards of this earth and to be caretakers of it and take care of it so it can sustain. So our kids and grandkids and generations beyond us that outlive us can enjoy the same freedom and enjoy the same pastimes and things that we're passionate about in fly fishing and everything. But that takes an effort from everybody, right? That takes not only knowledge, and we gain knowledge through experience, but also from being good listeners and learning from other people and being open to hearing different perspectives. And I certainly don't, I don't have it all figured out, right? I'm one human being who has a limited perspective based on the life I've lived until now. And so my decisions and my opinions and perspectives are based on the knowledge I have at the moment. And it changes, it grows, and it adapts, and I fine-tune it. Because even though I don't have the market on, exactly the perfect solution to every problem, I'm always willing and open to learn so I can get better. And so I'm passionate about passing on what I know, right? And I'm open to hearing what I don't know. And so I don't know that, do we have the perfect solution to be the perfect conservationists in the world? Probably not. But we can all play a part. We can do our part, and we can come together. I think that's the most important thing, is that even though we might have differing views, even within this country, even within this culture, this fly fishing community, there's different perspectives. I think there's a little truth in all of it. I catch and release almost everything, but I also keep some brook trout when I'm camping and eat them here in Colorado. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with helping other people do that, and teaching them the proper way, because I think learning how to fillet a fish is just as important as learning how to catch one sometimes, and it's a life skill. And so, but I think there's things that we can do that everybody can be on board with, and that's just being good caretakers of the resource, right? And respecting the resource, treating other people with respect, and treating other people with decency, and and also having a teachable spirit, but also being willing to share what we do know if you see somebody doing something. Because a lot of times I think in the outdoors, there's certainly, violators of things, people that are doing things on purpose and they know better, right? And that's unfortunate. You're always going to have that. There's one in every crowd. But I think a lot of times there's people out there that are just ignorant, right? They don't know that it's maybe not the best conservation method to keep 15 trout out of one hole. They might not even know. They were just taught that from where they're from, and so they're excited that they caught 15 fish. And I think there's a teachable moment there, right? I think there's a moment of saying, hey, like, that's awesome, great job, like, you cleaned house on this fish, that's awesome, but hey, I don't know if you know, but just so you know, like, these are rare trout maybe, or this is a catch and release only stream, or whatever the rules are, whatever. But I think there's an opportunity in every situation to not only learn something, but also share something. And I think the world's a better place if everybody could take on that attitude, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. I think I've seen a lot recently this kind of comes back to the curiosity piece of not just immediately assuming something, but being curious as to why somebody's doing what they're doing. You never really know what the situation is. Yeah. And there are some convoluted things that we know as anglers, for example, fishing reds and things like that, that you have to be pretty into the game to understand like what that's all about.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Not every single person that goes out fly fishing for the first time has that in mind. And it's such a teachable moment of like, hey, I don't know if you know, that little spot right there is actually like a spawning ground for trout. Like that might be you might be able to change the trajectory of that person's fly fishing career. So I think
100%. I mean, and I 100% agree, because there was a time in my early fly fishing journey, I didn't know what a red was. I knew fish spawn, but I never heard the term red. And if I came along a river and I saw like dozens of, 24 to 30 inch trout stacked up, you better believe I'd be throwing a line in, right? Because I didn't know that that's maybe unethical. I didn't know I just saw a bunch of big trout, right? And so, and I think you never get a second chance to leave a first impression, right? And so if someone's first impression of you is you standing on the river yelling at them, cussing them out, or chewing them out for something they knew nothing about, is that really good for this community? Is that really good? I don't think so. But I think if you were to step in and say, wow, isn't that cool to see those big trout? Like, holy cow, but hey, I don't know if you know this, but these are spawning trout and they're actually protected right now, and it's really harmful to disturb them in that. I just wanted to let you know. I don't know if you knew that. I mean, what an open door, right, to actually help someone along in their journey, because I know I would respond much better to that if I was young in this journey, as I was at one point. That's what we all forget, right? As experienced anglers, we forget that we were once green, right? We knew nothing. And it took people who were willing to lay their pride down and their judgments down and say, hey, put their hand on your shoulder and say, hey, just so you know, there's a better way, or whatever it may be. So I think just being conscientious of that, and just like you said, like going into it like open-minded without judgment is huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if I was a 15-year-old and the first time that I went fishing and saw a bunch of awesome fish and then got yelled at by like 3 guys who I looked up to, that would kind of ruin the experience for me, and who knows if I'd come back. We don't want that to happen. So
Totally agree. Yep.
Well, yeah. So yeah, I have a little bit of a conservation background in the Indian Peaks. So I did my research at CU Boulder on Mercury and high alpine trout. So I have a deep understanding of the area. God, I love it up there. I got to fish in the Boulder watershed actually, which like nobody's allowed to do. I got a special permit. So like the fish there just ate everything. It was fantastic.
That's cool.
But yeah, at the end of the day, like, there's so much that goes into these fisheries that are things that we don't even think about. Like, for example, mercury is coming from coal and cement plants that are hundreds of miles away.
Yeah.
And knowing that, like, everything that we can do to be as protective as we can, but also know that, like, the regulations are in place because smart people put those regulations in there. And that means that if if the regulations say you can take a couple of fish and enjoy a time out there with your clients, with your friends, cooking some fish and teaching that piece as well, then that's completely within regulation, and I think it's an incredible experience to share. So I completely agree with that piece as well.
Cool. Yeah, definitely.
I would love to hear a little bit about some of the backcountry trips that you guys offer. I feel like that's something that's super near and dear to my heart. I love the backcountry of Colorado. I think it's kind of something that people overlook with all the big trout and some of the awesome streams that we have. But like, those are something that I'm super excited about, and something that drew me to you and what you do immediately. So I'd love to hear some more about that.
Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome, man. We definitely align there. The backcountry is something special, as you know, and the more I can be in it, I mean, it's just amazing, man. My heart is filled out there. So, I would say right now, our bread and butter probably for backcountry trips for the Front Range here is Rocky Mountain National Park, which is just on the north side of the Indian Peaks. I love the Indian Peaks too. I'm not permitted currently to guide in there, but personal days I love to get up there for sure. So Rocky Mountain National Park, I mean, again, is an extension of the Indian Peaks in a sense. Same type of wilderness feel, same type of environment, same mountain range area, and I mean, there's so many just creeks and lakes and hiking stuff, everything from a mile to 10 miles in some places, and you can really, even though it's, when you enter Estes Park and you enter the park, it doesn't seem like a very remote place with all the traffic and people and campgrounds and stuff, but you get more than a mile or two on some of those trails, and you feel pretty alone in sometimes, and so there's plenty of backcountry miles to be had in Rocky Mountain National Park for sure. And I mean, the fishing is great. I mean, there's lakes and streams full of willing fish, especially, I mean, the summertime is really the time to fish the backcountry. I stretch it a little bit more than most, I would say, late into the fall as much as I can, as long as it's accessible. I try to make a venture out there, but as far as guiding and clientele and stuff like that, we're coming into like prime season for that. We had a pretty heavy winter, so it's a little bit pushed back this year, which I'm totally fine with. It's good water for the animals and the plants and stuff. So, but now through really like into October even is really good. It's just a blast. And so, we offer backcountry trips, day trips. We haven't ventured into like the true overnight stuff yet, but I think that'll be coming. I think that's something I want to start putting together a few trips for next year. But we also, something I'm really passionate about that I enjoy doing is I like to host trips. So we host trips. We work with some lodges in the Flat Tops Wilderness, which is in northwestern Colorado, and I've worked with some other outfitters and lodges and stuff in different places in different states as well. But I would say, in Colorado here, we do several trips a year into the Flat Tops, and we stay at lodges and stuff like that, and get out and explore just some amazing waters. The fishing is phenomenal. The scenery is equally phenomenal, and it's just 3-4 days of just having a phenomenal time with some great people. The food and drink is good. It's that to me is like to have 3-4 days to really immerse yourself into a wilderness setting. Still have some creature comforts, a shower and a hot meal provided for you. But to have a few days of fishing, like where there's no roads and no buildings, it's pretty awesome, man. It's pretty special. I really look forward to those trips.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. If you were talking to somebody who was trying to get into it themselves, looking into trying to do the backcountry thing, check out Indian Peaks, check out Rocky Mountain National Park, what would be some advice that you would give them? Don't have to give locations or anything like that, but what would be some advice that you would give them to somebody who's just starting out and maybe is just like, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into?
Well, I think there's a healthy balance between being prepared and just going and doing it. And what I mean by that is like most of the adventures and the things that the skills and knowledge that I personally learned was from trial and error. Like when I first moved to Colorado, I was in my early 20s, mid 20s, And it was like a whole new world opened up to me, right? And I wanted to do everything adventurous, right? Backcountry snowboarding, fly fishing, bow hunting, deep in the wilderness, rock climbing, mountaineering, whitewater stuff. I mean, you name it, like I was all in. And dude, I didn't have any money in my 20s. I mean, just new to a place. So I didn't have the best gear. I didn't have the latest and greatest stuff, but I had like an adventurous spirit and a willingness to go. And so a lot of the things I did to learn these skills and find these places was really just by going and doing it. And I don't recommend that to everybody necessarily. I think I was a little ignorant in a lot of ways, and looking back, especially learning about avalanches and things and dangers and stuff out there, like I did a lot of stuff that was probably like not the safest and not the most well thought out or prepared. I'm glad I'm here to talk about it, but so I think there's this healthy balance, right? I think getting prepared and being prepared for certain things, right? Don't just go into a backcountry setting blind, but at the same time, you can sit around and wait till you have every piece of gear and every bit of knowledge about every foreseen and unforeseen problem in the world, and you can wait your whole life until you have all that and never go. At some point, you need to say, you know what? I have a brain, I have some common sense, I'm in decent enough shape, I have ways to purify water and start a fire if I need to, I have shelter, I have food, water, and maybe you have some software or some technology that allows you to send a message to somebody. Always let somebody know where you're going, I think is huge. So prepare yourself enough to feel confident enough to, like, if something were to happen, at least you have some basic needs and stuff met. But it's at the end of the day, like, you just need to go. And go with somebody else. Find somebody else who's willing to go explore with you, right? And maybe just start small. Maybe you're not gonna, go climb Denali like on your first trip, right? But maybe you'll go try Mount Bierstadt. It's a couple mile hike up and down and get used to elevation. Maybe we're gonna go hiking 2 miles to this lake, fish it. Maybe set up a camp, spend a night, and then hike back out the next morning. The human body and spirit is capable of far more than we give it credit for. Most people never put themselves in positions where they have to stretch beyond their comfort zone. And that's safe, and that's okay. But I think it's important in life at times to stretch yourself outside your comfort zone as well.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Just 100% all around. Not only that, but that translates so well to starting a business, to starting something new, to starting anything that's a little out of your comfort zone, because you can spend your whole life preparing for everything that you think you'll experience in a business, and then the moment that you take the first step, you still won't know a dang thing. Yeah. So it's kind of like you might as well take that first step. Me and my friends typically are on the side of underpreparedness. We kind of put ourselves out there and see what happens. I remember our first backpacking trip to Gunnison Gorge. We thought that we'd catch so many fish that we didn't bring any food. So we were like, we'll be fine. And then day 2.5, we still hadn't caught a fish, and we were like hungry as hell, and we had to hike out, and we were like, I don't know if we're going to make it. So we made it, luckily. But I definitely understand that a little bit of unpreparedness and how maybe it could be a little better to do your research before.
But you learned, right? And you came away with knowledge that maybe you wouldn't have had things been different. And you survived, and probably scared you just enough or whatever to like be more prepared next time.
Yeah, I did learn that the human body can last a decent amount of time without food, actually a couple of weeks. So I was fine at the end of the day, but that hike out was not easy.
That's a brutal hike.
Malnourished.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Would have been easy.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said that hike probably would have been a lot easier and less of a drag had you had a bunch of fish under your belt too, though.
Yeah, we do it every year now, so I actually go back every single year. I love it.
I remember you telling me that.
favorite
cool.
trip that we get to do.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd love to hear any trips like that stand out to you and where
Cool.
you kind of might have been a little unprepared and it still turned out
Yeah.
to be incredible.
Um, yeah, I mean, I would, in my younger years, I certainly, looking back, realizing, yeah, that could have went way worse than it did. Thankfully, I've never had any real, true, um, dangerous close encounters as far as, I mean, like all those extreme sports that I did when I was younger, and I still enjoy now. It's just it's less extreme, I guess you could say, from most people's perspectives. But I mean, there was always things you had to overcome. There was always an accident here and there, but nothing that was so dangerous that it was, a movie was going to be made about me or something. Um, but yeah, I mean, there was times where canoeing down some rivers, and run off, and like you get yourself in a situation where it's like this is bigger water than you'd expect, and you had to figure it out, and maybe you dumped your canoe and had to try to find all your gear and everything. Um, I can't think of anything that stands out in the um, like in the fishing world right off where I've put myself out there too far. But there is a memory from early teenage years in Michigan that stands out. Um, I was like obsessed with winter camping. I mean, I guess when you have 6 months of winter in northern Michigan, you better find something to do. And being a kid, I was always outdoors, and so I wanted to do everything. And I had nothing as far as like quality gear as a teenager. I mean, it was like Walmart stuff. Um, the bag said it was rated to 0 degrees, but it wasn't. I mean, but I do remember this one time I was like, I'm gonna winter camp. I think I was probably 14, and I had no gear whatsoever. My dad was supposed to meet me later. I was going to go down first, and I was going to find a place to camp. So I trudged way out into the woods, and I was going to build a fire. That was my first order of duty. And then I had a place to camp, and we were supposed to meet. Now, keep in mind, this is before like cell phones. This is before any way of communication. We were just kind of like landmark navigating, right? Meet me here. There was no time even, just whenever you get there, right? And so I remember going down there, and it was starting to get dark, and I had gathered all this wood. All of it was wet. Nothing was lighting. Nothing was burning. And I had crappy clothes, jeans, probably just like 3 layers of jeans or something stupid, right? And it's like sub-zero, it's windy, and my dad hasn't come yet, and I didn't have any like outdoor skill knowledge or anything outside of just, stuff you pick up here and there. And so I got cold, and so cold, like all my clothes were freezing because it was wet. It was a wet snow. But I just couldn't get warm. And I was just like, I didn't know what to do. And I was like, how long do I wait for my dad? And he hasn't shown up yet. He was at a meeting and it ran long. I find out later. And so interestingly enough, I like finally called it. I was like, I have to move. I have to leave. Otherwise I'm not going to make it. Like I had probably was mildly hypothermic because I had gone through the shivers and then stopped shivering. Mm-hmm. That's when you know things are dangerous. I know that now. But so I ended up walking back home. I don't know, it was only a mile or so. It felt a lot longer as a kid. But well, my dad at the same time had gone down a different way. And so we crossed each other a little ways away without knowing it. So I came back home and I'm just like an ice cube. And my dad's not there. My mom was there and she's freaking out. And then my dad thought, because there was a lake down there, we were going to camp along this lake. It was obviously frozen. So he was scared because he couldn't find me. And he's like looking all over the lake, thought maybe I fell through the ice or something crazy. Anyway, long story short, that was probably, I got warmed up and everything, but that was probably one of those things that stands out like, yeah, I wasn't well prepared, and it could have been worse, but thankfully I've never been really truly cold since, I will say that. So that's the benefit of that is like once you're really truly cold, it takes a lot to get cold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I love that story. I think, I mean, there's so many times when I can think where like we got lucky and it worked
Yeah,
out and it could have gone the other way, but sometimes life just has a way of kind of like pushing you to the edge, right
sure.
where you learn something, and then
Hmm.
it's kind of like, all right, we're gonna get you out of here.
Yeah,
We've
yeah,
we've had a couple of those for sure.
absolutely. Yep.
Um, well, yeah, I also wanted to ask you a little bit because I feel like you've grown a little bit of a social media following within the fly fishing industry. I really appreciated how like I just reached out to you over
Yep.
Instagram, over a quick DM, and was just like, hey, like would love to meet you, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And you were super open to that. Um, what do you see as like the fly fishing community as like an industry, and how important is that like interconnected piece and that kind of like opening of the arms and being willing to kind of like
Mhm.
accept whatever's coming to you, I guess.
Yeah. It's a good observation, and I think you said it well. I think the fly fishing community overall is really welcoming, and that's what I love about it. I mean, I've met some absolutely amazing people, including yourself, over the years that I've been involved in this industry and community, all over the country. I mean, one year really stands out for me in 2014. My dog and I, he was just a pup at the time, but I had mapped out this giant road trip all over the U.S. to catch all these native trout all over. And I had just kind of put out a thing on my um, social media at the time. It's like, hey, I'm going to be traveling here these weeks. Would love to meet some local people who have some knowledge about the area and take you fishing. And man, the response I got was just overwhelming, and it was really awesome. And there was three or four families that I met that really stuck out all across this country that I'm still like close friends with to this day, and I still see them and we talk regularly, and they've become family in a lot of ways. And I've seen them many times since then and stayed in touch with them, and it's, I mean, true, like real, like brothers, a lot of them. And they were just so welcoming, opening up their homes to me, a complete stranger, me and myself and my dog, and I just think that's not only like you know God in people, but it's also like this passion, this sport that we call fly fishing. That there's almost like an unwritten level of trust there, right? That somebody else. It's like this commonality that you see, like you find out, oh, this person's a fly fisherman. It's like, hey, and there's almost like instant like level two friendship just because you have that in common. And I think that's so beautiful. And then you find out you're more similar than even just fly fishing, and it just builds a relationship from there. So yeah, overall, I think you've been to the shows, the fly fishing show, and ISE and IFTD and all these places, and um, a lot of those shows for a lot of us in the industry is like reuniting with friends, and that's something I really am passionate about and I love. Is like when January rolls around and the shows start coming through Colorado, it's like, man, I get to see some old friends today. How cool is that? And hear about their stories. I've been watching their adventures online for the last year, and now we get to go like, fist bump about it and talk about it, and maybe let's plan a trip this year for us, and so I think that's cool, and it's unique, and the fly fishing industry and community is still small enough in many regards that there's still that intimate connection between people, right? Nobody feels really truly out of reach, I guess you could say. And I'm pretty bold about stuff like that. Like, I mean, there's certainly the celebrities in the fly fishing, if we want to call them that, for lack of better terms. But you can be just like this with that, right? And I've never felt intimidated by that because, hey, they're doing it, I'm doing it. Let's talk, let's connect. And so, and most people that you meet that have made it or have done something big to where they have a status that everybody knows who they are, so to speak. All the people that I've met like that have been super genuine. They've been just down to earth, real. They'll spend time with you, and so that's really cool. And that's something I want to exemplify. Like when people see me, like I think people know my dog more than me, honestly. which is kind of cool. I've had some funny stories about that too, just deep in the wilderness, which is cool. But I think just treating everyone like they're unique and special because they are. Like there's there's only one of each of us, right? How cool is that? So I love the fly fishing community. I think it's a really tight knit family in most regards, and I hope it stays that way. I do.
Definitely, yeah. As somebody who was younger when I first got into the industry, moving into an industry of people that are generally older and more
Yeah,
experienced, and people that like almost get into it after a bout of like working somewhere or something like that before they become a guide or something like that.
yeah,
It was definitely intimidating. An industry like my preconceived notions of what I was getting into compared to like how quickly people with open arms were willing to be like, yeah, kid, come in here. Like, we can talk about this company that you're trying to build that like probably will never work out, but like, sure, like let's see what happens.
yeah,
And being able to like give them ideas and just be like, I'm thinking this, and they'd be like, well, that's they'd give me an honest opinion, and they
yeah.
wouldn't sugarcoat, but also be super genuine, super kind about it. And I've always found that within the industry. There's definitely people here and there that have some egos, and that is what it is. You'll have those
Sure.
kind of people in every industry. But
Yeah.
gosh, was I surprised to see that most people that I talk to are willing quickly to at least lend a hand to what we're doing, even if it's
Love
not
it.
something that's going to help them. So
That's great, man. That's cool.
yeah. Well, I would love to hear about the guides that you've brought on underneath you. And
Yeah.
now that you've kind of found yourself in a bit of a leadership position with like guides that are kind of working, I get some of them guide for themselves. I know like Jim is actually more of a mentor to you.
Hmm.
Um, but what's it like to have kind of like a brand that you're building
Yeah.
and trying to get guides to be a part of that? Like, how are you making a cohesive unit out of those people?
Sure. That's a great question. And honestly, it's a I'm learning as I go, right? It's a work in progress. I think um, this is kind of my first real true season launching native waters fly fishing from an outfitter's perspective, and there's some other components of it, like you said, a brand and some things that I'm working on. But um, really, I think native waters fly fishing, at least from my perspective, the direction that I want to see it go is that same thing we talked about early on, a little while ago, is just bringing other people to the table, right? And I don't want to, if people think of native waters fly fishing and they don't think of Greg McCrimmon, perfect. That's okay with me. I'm totally fine with that because it's not just about me, right? It's so much bigger than that in my vision of it, at least. And um, yeah, I might have had the idea and the vision, but if other people can take it further than I could, I'm okay with that. And it's bringing people together that have a like passion and a like heart and love native trout as much as I do and love sharing it with other people and want to help protect and conserve these fish and celebrate them also. There's a reason we share photos of these beautiful fish, right? We want to bring attention to them. And maybe some people have, different motives and everything, but to me, like seeing a picture of a beautiful cutthroat trout, I mean, it's like, it's inspiring, right? Because it's like, man, something that beautiful lives underwater that most people never get a chance to see. That's pretty cool. And so, I want to celebrate that, and I want to bring awareness to it, but also share something that is unique and I'm passionate about in different ways, through photography and videos and stuff, but also maybe some merchandising down the road a little ways. Um, but bringing other guides in and stuff, it's a little bit of it's obviously a responsibility, right? I mean, you're taking on, like you said, a more leadership role and having other people. So there is that. But I mean, the guys that I've brought on are all great. I mean, they're friends, a lot of them, and people that have expressed, hey, if you ever get something going, I'd be interested in being a part of it. And so the people that I asked and chose to see if they would be willing to jump in this with me and be a part of it at whatever level, I was really upfront with people. It's like, I don't know what this year is going to look like. But if you want to be on retainer, so to speak, and if you want to pick up a few trips and bring some other people and do some trips through native waters, like, you can certainly do that. I encourage it. So it's cool in the sense, and I've really enjoyed just, these are people that I want to fish with and spend time with, right? They're not just guides to me; they're friends. And so, providing an opportunity for other people to use their skills and abilities and talents and achieve goals or pursue their passions and help other people, like that's pretty awesome, and so it's fun. There's, I think, let me think, Jim, Caleb, so 5 other guys that are just kind of able to guide that I've brought on. So great dudes, and book a trip with them. They're phenomenal human beings, and they know. I was doing the math the other day. I was like, man, I bet you there's, between all 6 of us, there's probably close to 150 plus years of fly fishing knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. That's incredible when you think about it in those terms. Like, that is a lot of knowledge. There's a wealth of knowledge and just some great guys. You're going to have so much fun. I want to go book a trip with them because, they're just fun guys. I love spending time with them in and off the water. And, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for them. I'm excited that they now have an opportunity to go do something they want to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the point of getting a guide. The same thing that it sounds like you struggled with in the beginning of your fly fishing experience. Something that I struggled with as well when I first moved out to Boulder, Colorado, was a lack of knowledge. And what better way than this incredible knowledge that a guide has built his life around.
Absolutely.
That's incredible to learn from. What would you say is, I kind of would love to hear a little bit more about the brand of Native Waters fly fishing. Like, what does it mean to you? And what's kind of like the vision today? Where is it going? What would you like it to be maybe in the future as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know that I have a really perfect, concise answer for you, other than, I obviously have a vision for it. I obviously have some goals within it. And I think the outfitting piece is certainly a piece of it, but it's not everything. I don't want to just be an outfitter. I don't want Native Waters to just be known as an outfitter. I definitely want to. I have some design ideas and stuff I want to do. I want to do some basic merchandise and stuff, I think it's more of just like, I want to create something that everybody would want to wear, like a hat that says something different maybe for everybody, but yet, when they see Native Waters fly fishing, they have an idea, right, of beautiful, pristine places with beautiful, pristine fish and something unique, right? Cutthroat trout, native trout, to me, like, I'm so passionate about them because for me, it's like, when I can go catch a fish that was not put there by man, that's pretty cool. And that's really, really, really special. And those places aren't as common as they once were before the reintroduction of non-native species and stuff. And so you have to work harder for them, but they make you earn it, right? And I kind of like that in some ways. And I like the idea that I can't just go catch a greenback cutthroat trout in every one of its native home waters. I have to go to some special places that are going to make me sacrifice a little bit to get there. And that's true with many other trout that are on the decline and that are rare and uncommon and stuff. But Native Waters fly fishing is kind of a culmination of just a deep passion within me that is passionate about the natural world we live in and the fish and the animals and stuff that call them home. And so I want to create ways to celebrate that. I want to find ways to offer things to people that are like, man, I want to be a part of that. Right? I want my piece of Natives Waters fly fishing, whether it's a hat or a shirt or whatever it may be, or a trip, right? And so I want to work with other people. I want to work with more people. I want to partner with different lodges that have similar niches, I guess you could say, or a similar passion, or at least open to like providing a trip specifically for the native trout of their region or the native fish of their region, and then somehow figure out a way to partner together to put some trips together. I love helping people pursue and achieve their goals and dreams in life. And so if you have a fly fishing bucket list, like, I want to be a part of helping you achieve it. I want to be a part of helping you put trips together and or at least putting you in contact with the right people, right? It doesn't have to be me, but I mean, if you call me or reach out to me on Instagram and have a question about such and such waters, like, I'm typically not one of those like, well, I can't talk to you until you hire me. I'm not one of those people, right? I get it, man. Like, not everybody has the funds to be able to just hire somebody to take them fishing, even though that's part of what this business is. But man, if you're genuine and just asking questions and want to learn and grow, like, I'll share with you. I'll help you on your journey, right? That's part of it. And I don't ever want to let business come in the way of relationship, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sold, and I want my little piece of Native Waters fly fishing. I'm a huge fan of you especially, and also the brand that you're trying to build here. I feel like I really resonate on a lot of the points that you've made today. So really excited to get out there in person with you and actually doing some fishing. That'll be a good time.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I feel like we said an hour, so we're kind of closing at an end here. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on, especially within your business, within your personal life, within your family life, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, nothing outside of what I've already said, but I would just say, just to touch on some things and just reiterate, like, I mean, it's a big world and there's more than enough room for all of us. And so if you have a goal, if you have a dream, like, just go after it. Just go do it. I mean, there's really two formulas for success in life, right? It's get started and don't quit. That's all. That's really, it boils down to those two things. There's a lot of things in between those things, but if you can get started, take a step, and just, you're not willing to quit, you will succeed in life. It's that simple.
It really is. At the end of the day, if you keep your chips on the table and you continue to play the game, and for that, all you have to do is breathe, I guess, and keep pursuing your passion, then you're still winning. I think that's super important.
Totally, man. Absolutely.
Well, it's been a pleasure working with you. It's been a pleasure having a quick chat. I'm looking forward to getting to know you more in person and doing some more with you as well. Would love to ask you, just like completely honestly, what's your experience been with the GoGuide system? Any pros, any cons, anything that you'd love to share?
I would say all pros, man. I mean, honestly, I say that genuinely. And you ask me honestly, and I'll give you my honest feedback. You guys have been great, truly. You've been communicative. You've been, you guys have reached out, like, unsolicited at different times just to check in. And I so appreciate that. It means you're not only passionate about what you're doing, but it means you're passionate about the people you're working with, and you care enough to, like, hey, is there anything we can do? How else can we help out? Is there anything that I can do for you today? How's everything going? Like, that shows you that your company and your idea, your business here is built on relationship, and that's huge. And I think it's going to go places for you. So I love it, and I've been very satisfied with it. I love seeing the updates as you guys continue to evolve and continue to grow and learn new tricks and tips, and just providing solutions that are better and better and better as time goes on. That means you're interested in growing and helping the customer base as much as you can. So I have nothing but positive things to say, man. I mean, it goes both ways. I've had the pleasure of getting to know you and the other people with GoGuide, and I'm impressed. I'm thankful, and I will continue to work with you guys.
That means the world. Trust me, it literally fuels our ability to do what we do, because having these conversations and being able to hear that means more than you know. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited. I can't wait to get out there with you.
Yeah. Sounds great, man. Likewise.
All right. Great talking to you. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, man. Have a great day.